Seems to be doing all right so far.
It's me husband. Suddenly can't talk proper lines.
You once told me that you had the finest comic mind in the country.
Oh, beyond that, in the universe.
Spike Milligan, actor, goon, singer, was the godfather of British comedy.
Milligan, of course, never has been simply a comedian.
Musician, author, playwright.
He's an inventive man.
Inveterate letter writer, crusader against bureaucracy,
Poet, illustrator,
and trumpet player. He is a national treasure.
I don't want to know about thinking and all that thing about earning money. It's sort of an idiot.
They actually called me genius. If I am, I did not know it. I did not know that.
Not like the beast from Spike. Tonight, a tribute to the late Sir Edward Elgar, whose favourite instrument was the B-flat garden hose, for which he wrote many great pieces, including Underneath the Armpits, Do My Names Away. Right.
He was brilliant, beyond brilliant. He was unique.
Spike developed a kind of comedy that had such delightful lunacy.
Spike took comedy up a gear. In a very strong sense. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it my way.
Well, horses don't play the piano.
Now, he's not a real horse. There's a dog inside working him.
Authorities should be able to be mocked, and Spike at his best was a chief mocker.
This government will pursue policies which will bring it within our grasp.
I think he's incredibly important in the psyche of the nation, really.
What are we going to do now? 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 Yes, what are we going to do now? My first memory, I can't place where it was though. I remember it had been haunting me all my life. I was looking through from the inside, looking through a porthole, and there was a blue sea and a yacht going past with a reddish harbour brick wall behind it, and I can't ever remember where it came from. He was a frustrated actor. His father put him in the army when he was 14, but he always wanted to act and perform, and he did it all through his life, as a soldier showman used to call himself. It's very, very good. My mother and father, they did shows for the troops overseas. They were great days. But then came World War I. It was a famous war, and a big cast, and my father's regiment was sent to Mesopotamia. He was wounded, and he was brought back to India on convalescence, and he must have done something, because 9 months later I was born.
Where did they first call you Spike?
In the army.
Oh, so when you were little they called you what, Terry? Terry?
Terry, yes, Terry.
You were Terry?
Yes, I didn't choose it to be called Terry, but they abbreviated the name, so I often wonder why people give you a real name and then abbreviate it. India was possibly the greatest experience of my life. I grew up in bright sunshine. I like bright things. I grew up with excitement. I grew up with animals. I grew up with tremendous space. We had an Indian cook, and a Tambi, a houseboy, and a Mali, that's a gardener. We weren't rich, but in India you became rich by reason of the fact that the labour was so cheap. We were living a lie. If we were back home in England, my father would have been living on a scale 50 times reduced. And no servants, and my mother would be blackleading the stove and the grate and whitening the step. I grew up believing that white people were superior, most superior to anybody else. I did treat the servants as my parents used to talk to them, as being second-rate people, which of course they weren't. But we filled up with a load of guns, empirical guns, and deep down I wasn't born to be that type of person. I was meant to be a liberal. I had to go to church every Sunday, and I liked it because I had sung Mass in Latin. And there's also an Indian priest who said the Mass in Tamil. And I used to get the giggles because it sounded just like this. Igri bagri, igri bagri. Igri bagri, igri bagri, igri bagri, igri bagri, bagri. And I had to be suppressed many times.
You were too young, weren't you, to laugh?
Yes. Well, I just thought it was funny sound.
His humour was quite onomatopoeic, if you like. His use of language, certainly in his poems, is influenced by having been brought up with two languages in his childhood.
I understand you're a great man to go to an Indian restaurant with.
Oh, yes.
Haven't you got the Urdu?
What? The Urdu? I speak Hindustani, yes.
Hindustani, yeah.
Hindustani janta hai. Bilkul Hindustani janta hai.
Do you order?
Hindustani adam idhar hai. Kidhar hai. Aapko dast, ram ram. I started school about the age of 5 at the convent of Jesus and Mary in Pune, and it was there actually that I got my first chance on the stage. They had a nativity play, and the nuns are not notoriously good for moving heavy scenery in between scenes. So they got me, they thought they'd put me in front of the curtain while they were moving all the things, and they dressed me up as a clown. Rather prophetic vision, because that's what I became in the end, a clown. And what my job was to do was to go in front of the curtains like this and jump up and down. This is all I did. My first performance was exactly like this. I went... And everybody thought it was very funny for a boy of 5. I remember a very poignant part of that story was that the fact that the nun said to me, no, Teddy, when the crib's at the end with Jesus in the crib, she said, you mustn't go near there, only the angels must go near the crib. And I thought that wasn't fair, so I actually still had a touch of theatre about me. I waited all around the crib, and I was singing Adeste Fidelis, and I went there and took my hat off, my little clown's hat off, and got a round of applause for it. Little scene stealer. Jesus came second that day. The Labour government at the time had made what they called 10% cut of the Army, Navy and the Air Force, which left us in that invidious position when Hitler declared war of having nothing. My father was cut out of the army for his time, and we came home on the Rajputana.
The trouble is, when you make a 10% cut of staff, if you're one of those 10%, it says something. It says either you're too old or you can't do your job. That's it, really, isn't it? So I think there may have been a bit of a black cloud over them, leaving that fantastic lifestyle and coming back to South London.
Everybody seemed never to smile. They still don't. And sort of very sullen, dark, cold. We were in an attic room with a gas stove in the bedroom with us. My brother and I used to play with our soldiers and play little records and pretend we weren't there. I went to the South East London Polytechnic, studying metalwork. And then I received a cunningly worded invitation from His Majesty's government to partake in World War II at, I think it was 3pence a day, with the promise of a free burial if I was killed. I actually was thinking of being a pacifist, I was a gentle person. I wasn't into violence. And I said, well, I'm thinking of being a pacifist. He says, what? What will the neighbours say? I mean, I suppose he couldn't wait to tell people my son's been killed in action, you know.
I don't think he really wanted us to know how bad it was, but I also know that it would have done his head in just because he wasn't a killer.
Young are our dead, like babes they lie, the wounds they breast once not healed dry, and yet too soon, into each space, a cold earth falls on a colder face. Quite still they lie, these fresh-cut reeds, clutched in earth like the winter seeds. They will not bloom when called by spring to burst with leaf and blossoming. They will sleep on in silent dust as crosses rot and helmets rust.
Seeing blood spilt down, it was horrifying. I daren't think too deeply about it. I got wounded at Colle di Miano. We were trying to carry up batteries for the OP. And the fucking Germans must have seen us. They started to mortar us. The one must have burst somewhere near my head, and I got blown up.
Were you invalided out of the army?
No. They gave me some early tranquilizers, I think, which sent me to sleep, sent me on the lines for 7 days, and sent me up to the guns. And as soon as I had the guns go, I started to stammer. It was out of my mind. It had completely unbalanced me, you know. I was giggling and saying to the sergeant, can we have the next dance over the precipice together, darling? Things like that. And they took me to a first aid station somewhere, and I've never recovered since. When they saw the state I was in, I went to a psychiatrist and he said, I'm sorry, it would be dangerous for you to go up the line in this condition. He said, wouldn't be fair to your comrades. He said, well, we'll put you in a base camp. I went to a base camp and I had a couple more breakdowns while I was there. The major stood me up and said, you're a coward. And that was an appalling thing to say to a man. No crime in being a coward, mind you. But I didn't think I was a coward, inasmuch that I'd been in action all through the North African campaign. And all the way up to Casino. If I'd been a coward, I'd run away the first day, wouldn't I? Tell me that.
Yes, I think that seems true.
Well, I think I just run out of steam, that's all.
Dad was doing variety band box, as was Peter Sellers. Spike was trying to get his career off the ground. He wants to write and do his own stuff.
I used to work behind a bar, and the chap who owned the pub, Jimmy Graff, and he was writing at the time odd scripts for a chap called Derek Roy, and I used to tell one or two jokes, and then I'd run out of the jokes, and he said, well, you do any more? I said, no, I'd make some up, I suppose. And then I started to write way out things.
Jimmy tried to put a pilot show together. The BBC reluctantly, at first, let them broadcast it. It wasn't called The Goons then, it was called The Crazy People.
What? Yes! Oh, gentlemen, a mystery has been committed.
It was like nothing we'd ever heard before. It was four men who spoke in these funny voices, and they were just this wild bunch of anarchists.
There's somebody straining in that dark corner over there.
The free form of the characters, the free form of the story, the boldness, the audacity, the cheek, the silliness, the absurdity. It was just, no one else was doing that.
Egon, answer the phone.
What?
I want to speak to you on it.
Hello?
Is that you, Egon?
Yes?
This is Hercules Gridpipe Thin.
Oh, just the man. You owe me 10 weeks' wages.
You're fired as from 11 weeks back.
All these goon shows and so on, they're very gentle, aren't they? All these verses. You're very you're non-satirical in your work, but
No.
you project a great satirical front.
But now, I'm not an intellectual, therefore I cannot write satire. I feel violently about things, terribly violently, but I'm not a violent person. That's what I'm trying to say. My thing is, they say, oh, it's jolly funny. They go away and say, wait a minute, was that jolly funny? He had some pretty, he pointed the finger at me. The little clerks there would say, wait a minute, he was doing a thing about the Ministry of Folks, and they said that was me, but they laugh at the time, but they reflect. It's a reflective sort of humour.
It appealed to the sort of the anger, the sort of latent anger in the younger generation. No, we're going to do something different now.
Authority was moribund, and wherever it sort of crops out, it wants to establish itself and become holy, and Spike was having none of it.
Do you know what? I had an image in my head of the sort of woman I wanted to marry. Dark, with dark eyes, and big boobs. That's the sort of creature I used to draw at art classes. She looked like a sex bomb.
And she proposed to me. She said, will you marry me? And I thought, well, I didn't want to disappoint her, so I said yes.
Had you known her long?
Oh, I'd known her about a year. Here I was with all this responsibility. I went on writing and writing and writing. Well, I had to go on writing. I had to earn a living.
I just got into the front room and found him lying on the carpet there. Oh, is he dead? I think so. Oh, hadn't you better make sure? All right, just a minute. He's dead.
Back to your Spike.
Yes.
Where do these ideas come from?
I have no idea. Methodically, I don't unpack packets like people claim.
Spike did a whole stream of consciousness, really, go on and on and on, draft, on and on and on, until you had to say to him at the end of a Friday, you've got to stop now because we've got to send it up for the show on Sunday. When you went to the Goon Show, you went to the Camden Theatre. It was full of excited people. It's quite hard to get a ticket. And then they'd be up on the stage, usually looking a bit dishevelled really, and they'd read the script and frequently burst into fits of giggles themselves.
There's somebody laughing outside the bedroom door.
We look forward to this incredible day, this Sunday, this sort of reunion as it was for us. I mean, we used to live for that, didn't we? I suppose Spike used to feel a bit weary because during the week he wrote most of it. The Sunday get-together used to sort of, put a charge into Spike and the thing used to get off the ground.
There was a time that I was positively manic, gripped with this great fervour to write this stuff and to hear them do it every Sunday. I couldn't wait for them to do it because it acclaimed. When it went down, I thought, I've done it. Then I had to go start it all over again. That was the awful part of it. There's a mad desire to be better than anybody else at comedy. And if I couldn't do it in the given time of 8 hours a day, I used to work 12, 13 and 14.
He was under a lot of pressure. It is a pressure to get out a show week after week after week.
Consequently, I was sometimes writing all through the night, which I was willing to do, but then somebody wanted to write all day for another script and then write the following night. And this was happening, and because I was gentle and I didn't like to say no to anybody, I went on with it. My wife was suffering with postnatal fever, and she collapsed on the night that the baby was brought home. and I had no idea how to handle a baby. I cuddled it and tried to make milk. My wife was in a high temperature, and I got the doctor, and he said, keep her cool and give her this every 4 hours, and the baby's screaming, and it's time to write. After 2 days, I thought I'd gone mad. The tension was so immense, I cracked up and I started to sweat profusely, and it got very hot, and I had to go to bed. And the doctor couldn't treat me, so what he did was to shut me up with sodium amytal. I was lying there for a month and a half, and I got worse and worse and worse and worse, and I knew if I didn't do something, I'd be lying there forever. When all hope is gone, I suppose, either your mind cracks or you commit suicide. I didn't want it to reach that stage, so I decided that I'd have to do something desperate. And I got a potato knife, and I went out to Peter Sellers' front door. His flat was opposite, and I'm certain I walked through it. I remember I was cut. I walked through it. It was a glass door. You walk straight through it. I think I did that. And I remember shouting, I've come to kill Peter Sellers. Thank God they gave me deep narcosis. I went to sleep for about 3 weeks, and that seemed to break the tension, but I was still ill. I was mentally ill, no two ways about it. I shouldn't have been working, but I had to hang on to this job. It was a very good job. I went in and out of mental homes about once every 6 months.
But at this time, when you say you were ill, you were turning out classic comedy material.
It's amazing, yeah.
Do the ideas still come under those circumstances?
Yes, they did, yes, yeah. They were manic. Absolutely manic, yeah. I was slightly off my nut.
Were they usable ideas?
Oh, yes, they were usable, yes. They became more abstract and more exquisite, you know, like you get a scene where Neddy Seagram saying we must get to the woods before the trees get there. It was trying to drive insanity to its limit in the show.
Well, I'm bend down and I'll climb on your back and I'll reach the mouth of the letterbox like that.
Okay, up.
That's no good. I can't reach.
Well, you stay where you are and I'll get up on your shoulders.
Right?
No, no good. Not high enough yet.
Well, keep that, I'll climb on your back.
Okay. No good, I'll have to get on your shoulders now.
Boom, 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 boom. D-I-G means look, D-I-G means stare, D-I-G means see, D-I-G means glare, D-I-G means to use your eyes, so dig, 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 you crazy guys.
We couldn't use the word goon because BBC owned it. So 3 series, Idiots Weekly, price tuppence, the show called Fred, and Son of Fred.
Fred was a word that Spike and Peter found amazingly funny for some reason I've never been able to work out. I suppose it was just the antithesis of smoothness.
Sacre-cœur, it's Monte Carlo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
The Count of Monte Carlo.
He had images, great ideas, and he had them genuinely like fireworks going off. And he was so desperate to mold the medium of television to his ideas that we were left trailing behind saying, I think I know how I can do that.
Fire torpedo 1! And your strength forsake you, and you can't find romance. Jump into a dustbin and die. Throw out all that rubbish, show them you don't care. When they come to empty it, it won't be there. shit on the pants. Just leap into that dustbin and die.
The response to the first two of the three series was very, very good. The difficulty is that he then leapt forward with the third series.
Well, hello, folks. We are just seeing if the old ship is still railworthy, eh, Dennis?
By son Fred, it was a form of visual rather than verbal surrealism. It confused the hell out of the audience, but he was really, really pushing to see what was possible in comedy.
I think this is insult. I play Verdisco Baggio.
Yeah, I know, but I told you, mate, I'm sorry, we do need a camera. All right, now close in tightly, that's right, swing it over there, keep it like that's lovely and tight. Now then, change lenses over.
There is a terrible tendency in television to be very happy repeating a previous success, and they thought it was willful of us all to try to do something that we didn't know whether it would work or not, and it probably didn't work. But there were bits in it that were brilliant.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I will play Verdi's Cabaggio.
There. Now you're telling a story. Once upon a time there was a little girl called Celine. The girl's a very little girl. But she's very good, you know. That was Miss Laura Milligan, if you'd like to know. So don't smack your bottoms and think you don't know.
You talk too much, Miss Milligan.
I think there was a lot of discord going on between my mother and my father on the trip. I was very aware of bad tensions going on. The marriage was already faltering, so Dad was on manic highs and playing up. I think he became quite down on the trip. And I actually wanted to get off, but I was only about, I think I was quite small. I don't think June was happy. So, you pick up on your mother's sadness. I mean, she was only young. And she said, imagine you're on a boat and you just found out I really have married a lunatic. This is what I planned.
He was highly popular in Australia, where they sort of treat him like a god. He really was put on a pedestal. I think he liked all that fame when he was younger. He was very humble. He didn't like a fuss made of him, but he liked to be recognised. So I think him coming to Australia and the fact that he had actually had family on the ground there was quite a big thing.
On me. Oh dear, my man. What are you doing in my gutter? I was meditating in it. There's a place for that.
Oh, you hop a little on your little left shoe. You hop a little on your right one too. You don't mind bouncing like a kangaroo to the hop, scotch, polka.
Hop, hop, hoppity.
Hip, hip,
hippity, hop to the hopscotch polka.
I went to stay at the house at Avalon Beach. While I was there,
I had a terrible scene of screaming and shouting with Jim. Screaming and shouting and yelling at her. And I thought that nobody believed the way she spends money. So what I did was, to prove, I cut all the labels of all her dresses and all her clothing into a big heap to show how much clothing she had. You know, I wanted to show her, I must have explained. And I think she was unfaithful to me while she was out there. A chap came to see her off, and they were very, very close together, and I think she was unfaithful to me. Yeah, I'm certain of it. I got custody of the children through a very dodgy lawyer who kept threatening her, and I got custody in court.
Very unusual, isn't it? So.
It was unusual because she had committed adultery.
Yeah, but that wasn't usual
But,
in those days.
yeah, but I got them before the court case. The judge said, what do you do for a living? I said, I'm a writer. He didn't seem to go very deep. He told, that's it, that's good enough. And he said, right, well, custody is granted to the children. I'm still haunted by the fact that I deprived them of a mother. And it was my fault.
Later on in life, I was so proud of my father because he never said one bad word against June. He said she was a beautiful woman, a lovely nature. He said it was all my fault, and I wouldn't want you to think it was anything to do with her. He said it was all me, and God, did I respect him for saying that.
I thought, what can I do to prove to myself and them that I loved him so much I would create something?
Oh! What's this behind this tree, folks?
How's that for hand-acting? Untrained, too.
What a bit of luck!
That's what I said.
The silly book of verse for kids by Spike Milligan. I never felt finer, said the King of China, sitting down to dine. He fell down dead. He died, he did. It was only 9:30.
I was so excited when it was... I loved it. I love the humour, the drawings.
Are you sure there's a bungalow, Daddy? Am I sure, my son, said I? Why, I've seen it, not quite. On a dark, sunny night. Do you think that I tell you a lie? Spy, buy, buy! Spy! Ford money!
Yes, children, buy this book at once. Beat your parents until they do.
He sort of just took us off into this innocent place where only children can go, and we used to receive pixie and fairy letters that were tiny, 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 all handwritten by Dad. Obviously we didn't know at the time. You'd find them and write back, and they had us putting invitations into bunny warrens and squirrels' holes, and to invite them to parties with the pixies and fairies. So we were the events management for the pixies and fairies and all the natural creatures in the woods. It was fantastic.
He just liked children to have imaginative games and be and become whoever they were, and he liked spending time in the garden. He used to say, people, they pay a fortune for Van Goghs, to put on the wall. He said, when it's right under your feet, this is it. This is the beauty right here.
Will I find my love today? How I wonder where we'll meet. In the park or on a street. Will she come my way?
You married again?
Hattie, yes. She was very strong, very powerful, and gave my
children who were sort of social orphans at the time, gave them a mother. She gave up her own career. She was a superb singer. In some quiet. And she gave it up to look after my children. I'm eternally grateful to her for her. Will she come my way?
She was only 25 when she married Dad, and she took on 3 children, 10 and under. I mean, she's a saint, really.
I find
By now, of course, Peter Sellers had become famous as a film actor, and Harry was playing the Palladium, and playing it very well, I hear. And I was wowing them at Finchley Labour Exchange, because I was absolutely skint, and I remember getting a letter from my bank. He wrote, says, "Dear Mr. Milligan, I'd possibly overlooked the fact that you're overdrawn by £410. So I wrote back and said, "No, I haven't overlooked it. Can you?"
Hello. Hello. Get off the line, madam. Hello. Ground control.
You now, however, written a play, at least with John Antrobus. With John Antrobus? Yes, I can't help feeling a play is a very long thing for a man with your kind of mind.
I had not really written much of the bed-sitting room, and Spike loved the idea, and he would elaborate upon it and care passionately about the work.
Right now, gentlemen, can you tell us something about this play?
It does deal with what is indestructible, although after an atomic war. The ignorance,
Yes.
the prejudice,
All that, yes.
the concern with class, status symbols.
Yes, sir.
And this man is going to typify them in the play, aren't you?
Yes.
That is true, isn't it?
I've been doing that typifying.
You'll be
typifying the character.
The ignorance, and you're proud of it as well, aren't
I'm
you?
very proud of my typifying it.
It was received ecstatically by everybody, it's fantastic.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed.
Huh? Hello?
Oh, that's all.
What about the money?
Few thoughts were given at Clydebank to conquest of the air or space by the great crowd of nearly 50,000 at John Brown Shipyard.
I got a call from Norma Farnes, his manager, if I would go and see Spike at Orme Court. And Spike said they've offered me a series.
Dominating the scene, the Q4, culmination of an immense team effort by designers and builders.
The boat that was being built in the John Brown Shipyard was known as the Q4. And so we became Q5.
3 is Harrington of Cambridge and 4 is Cambridge of Harrington. They're getting ready now, and they're off. It's Harrington, the inside lane, who's making the going. Brand is pushing him, then Cambridge with Thomas as the back marker. They're about to come up to the tape. It looks like Thomas. No, it's Brandy. I said it was a bird. No, Brandy, Thomas. No, it's Brandy. It's Thomas. It's Brandy, Thomas. No, I think it was Brandy, but there's a first and a second and third and fourth.
When BBC Two started, they had a lot of very unusual programmes. The most unusual of them were these Q series. They didn't really fit anything you'd ever seen before.
Yes?
Good morning, madam. Good morning. Morning, madam.
It was very bracing to watch. You knew you were always going to be kind of shocked by something that was going to happen. That's not always the same as enjoying it, but you can say, wow, they tried to do that. Hey, that's great.
That is the end of that bit.
It's a great day for the Grandmother Hurling Finals here at Beachy Head. In the last 3 eliminations, over 100 grandmothers were successfully thrown out to sea, out of which only 2 returned back in the penalty time of 1.5 minutes.
I think Spike thought that we just pinched the Q idea to make Monty Python. It wasn't quite like that, but certainly we admired Q5 and the risks it took enormously.
This is Mr. Arthur Grinch and his 80-year-old grandmother.
Major, I've been her mother, and she's 91.
91? Well.
You couldn't nick Spike's stuff, really. It was so distinctive. You could take the spirit of Spike, but you couldn't take the detail.
Looking at his watch, he's...
The shape of the illness was almost lunar in its cyclical nature. You could almost predict to within the day whether he would be up or whether he would be down. He was at his most brilliant and most creative when he was about 3/4 of the way up the upswing, if you like. He was brilliant, beyond brilliant. He was unique. He was Spike Milligan, as Spike Milligan would always like to be. And the ideas flowed, and he was creative, and it was a joy to be there. When he got to the top of the swing, everything was so fast. And it was like a kaleidoscope of comedy. And you were grabbing at things if you could, and then he'd slice up the move down again. And again, he was very good until we got towards the bottom. And then it was slave off and no more writing again.
He was a beautiful father, but I was very aware, very young, of his depression. And it was hard.
I go under, and I sort of break down, and I start to say, leave me alone, and I just stay in the room alone, that's all, listen to some music.
We always knew if he was in his room and it said do not enter, that he was having a down time. The door would open, it would be a shadow of the man who would sit by our bed and tell us stories. It would be awful to see this 6-foot-something man just shrivel in front of your eyes. And he'd shrink, he practically looked like a little elf by the end with hollow eyes. You can tell a lot by the eyes when they go into darkness.
Mental pain is worse than any physical pain. It's invisible. That's the awful part of it, you know. An invisible pain aggressing you all the time, causing you to vacillate in your moods. And I spent so much time in bed under tablets I can't remember. It would add up to a year.
He still didn't feel like people understood what depression was. And especially as he'd been in a coma in the war for 3 weeks, people related it to that. But I personally actually believe he was just born like that. Because it runs in small fractions through my family. And he'd spent a lifetime trying to explain to his mum and dad about how he gets depression. But I suppose it was the era.
I want to tell you a story. It concerns a man who had once been a dashing cavalry officer in one of His Majesty's crack Indian cavalry regiments. He was a devil-may-care sort of man, with no time for women, except one.
His father used to say to him, well, son, you know, you just got to get on up there, get back on the horse and pull your socks up. And then Dad said to me, you'll never believe it, Laura, 2 years before my father died, he sent me a letter telling me that he'd suffered the same illness his whole life. And that really upset my father that his own father couldn't admit it to him. It was all held in. The darkness.
But what does it matter? It all soon will end with the sentinels. Who goes there? And to death I would cheerfully cry, a friend! And he'll say, hush, devil may care.
Who helps you? The children help me. Involuntarily they help me. By their sheer simplicity and their not wanting anything except love or a story. You know. The birds and beasts were there. The old pebble with the light of the moon, scolding his orphan hair. Jane is youngest now. And I feel sad that she's the last kid we'll have. I'd like some more, but it just wouldn't be fair on the world, you know. When I'm busy, and I'm sorry Daddy's reading the newspapers, what's in the newspapers that's so interesting? When there's a real, live fairy next to you.
Oh, an arrow's fallen to me! Quick!
Children just seem to bring him that peace, that inner peace that he needed.
There's always been a child running through my head laughing all through my life. I just don't seem I can get old. Not old enough to get away from it. I have a childish charisma inside me, and I love it.
What's it like to be on Mrs. Spike? You recognise him when you see him on television, that same chap that you're married to.
Oh, yes. He's not somebody that alters very much, is he? You know. He doesn't, he's not the great actor that puts on the great... I mean, he's just Spike, isn't he, all the time?
Well, is he larking around most of the day, or is he sad and unhappy man?
He doesn't lark around. He's a quiet person. He's serious. He's often sad, yes. But he seems to feel that the world's responsibilities are his. He takes them on his own shoulders and makes them his own responsibilities.
That's good.
To a certain extent, yes.
It's inhuman, it's anti-Christian, it's against all that we stand for in the world of progress. It's a backward step. We are right, they are wrong. Let us go on being right.
He cared passionately about something. He would go and talk for it and do it.
I think he was always completely uncowed and unafraid of speaking his mind.
Look at that. Look at that.
It was Spike who told us to use less petrol, and who tried to save trees and interested in all green things, which was very ahead of its time.
Sometimes people say he spoke his mind too often or too quickly or about the wrong thing, but he was completely refused to be sort of browbeaten by anybody, and I really admired that in him.
Lift up your trousers, Neddy.
Who pulled those trousers up?
It was a chance to get back together and sort of lay the ghost, I suppose.
Here, who's that snoring in that frock?
That's the new sound.
The occasion was just fantastic, and to see them all up there doing their stuff was wonderful. But it was interesting to see Spike on radio, sort of. You could see the cogs working, thinking, is this funny? Is this funny? Is this working? Do you need to go back on that?
Harry, we'd just get on and it would be a great laugh. And Spike had his other interesting new concerns or worries or angers. So I think it probably in that way, Peter was the one that would have loved them to come back and do it.
There goes.
Let us play a game and push him down the well.
Yeah.
He's fallen in the water.
Spike was trying to move on to other things, fed up with the whole kind of the Goon Show was the only thing he ever did. Trying to sort of claw his way away from the thing. I think maybe he thought that this would be a way of putting a line underneath it and saying, that's it, okay? Now I do other stuff.
Now get out!
But it just perpetuated the myth,
What are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? What are we going to do now?
No, we would take something and then we would say, what can we do to this that would make it funnier? And so the Boy Scouts got the bigger hats, the table. Let's put the table on the slope. And then everything would just fall. And then let's put it back up while still conducting their normal dialogue.
We interrupt this interruption with this interruption.
He was the first of the comedians who saw barriers that didn't need to be there anymore. That comedy didn't have to be confined to your mother-in-law. You could actually go into whichever area the mind took you.
I've written a song for my mother, who's just come over from Australia. I wrote it for her, and it's called A Waltz from the Heart. And all my family in tonight, I got all tickets for them at the exclusion of everybody else. And this song is for my mother, and it's going to be sung by my wife Patty. It's called A Waltz from the Heart.
Nepotism. 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 Nepotism.
Waltz from the heart, I write.
I don't think anybody should know they're dying. I don't see the point of it. A factotum comes here one day, and she said, am I dying? I said, oh yes. And I got all this glass of mine, took this glass out of here. Oh, you fucking idiot, I said. Go and tell other people they're dying. We're all dying. You're dying. I'm dying. I kept her here, she died at home, and I timed it so the night before she died, I told Jane.
And she said, no, she'll be better by Christmas, Daddy. I said, no. I said, I'm sorry, she's dying. She said, but I'm only 11. Tell me something worse than that. I don't know of it.
It would have been Q10, the series, because he talked about it being called Q10 and a cute hen being brought on. For some reason, the BBC retitled it There's a Lot of It About. They were trying to rebrand the show as being slightly more conventional. People were tricked into thinking it was more like the Two Ronnies or something.
Later on, Spike's various crusades, politically and environmentally, were sort of underscoring his humour as well.
Mrs. Rita Martin, you thought you'd open your door to empty a dustbin. It was all a trick. You have been chosen to play Loser Ranger.
There used to be a show called 3, 2, 1 where Ted Rogers would come on and do 3, 2, 1 like this, and this was a sort of rather silly thing that he used to do. So in Spike's world, this just became, welcome to whatever.
At the Dart of Worms, which one of Martin Luther's edicts were later used by Queen Isabella of Spain in the subsequent excommunication of the Habsburg dynasty?
Terry Wogan?
Reader, you have just lost your cyborg!
Well, the society that's been created is a very material one, and happiness cannot be allied to materialism. But real happiness can be done without any of these mechanical or financial artifacts of life.
There was a good, strong satirist with a very strong feeling about injustice and wrong and all that. He wouldn't let it lie.
Thank you, and welcome back to Maggie's Unemployment-thon.
I think it's like Swift or someone like that. There are satirists who really, they go hard in there. The images they create are quite kind of striking and a bit shocking. And sometimes you're so shocked by the image you think, oh, this can't be right. But actually what Spike was trying to do was just open people's minds.
Don't be dragging the granddad. Come on. There, all for you.
I don't know why they never made another Spike series. Maybe the BBC had decided that Spike had had a long run of material and he just needed to be rested while they gave someone else the opportunity to do it. I don't really know. You'd have to ask the executives.
Do you mean to say this bloody worldwide organisation of yours hasn't got room for half an hour with a known writer and a performer? You mean to say you haven't got any fucking room for it? But he says, oh, jolly good, right, we'll have another try. I'm waiting. Never hear from him again.
If the BBC wouldn't give him what he wanted, he regarded them as spurning him. He had this sort of Van Gogh syndrome, really, so he was like visiting it upon himself. He would eventually be the misunderstood genius and retire to the country and be an old man, wise, beyond the understanding of the world. And it was a part that he prepared himself for, and he played it to the end.
He did what some lucky few people do in British show business. They become grand old men of comedy. They become iconic figures. And if they're very unlucky, they become British treasures.
So what was it like, writing the Goon shows? It must have been extraordinary. And he just looked off distance and said, it was like one good summer.
So you went along not expecting a prize, and they gave you a prize.
Yeah.
How odd, because I went along expecting a prize and I didn't get one. But
well, you don't deserve one.
He's more than just an important figure in comedy. He's an important figure to the nation, really, and I think we should always remember that.
Noon tomorrow will be just south of Iceland.
A man who could take a weather forecast and turn it into a piece of art.
Let's see what sort of weather we're going to have tonight.
Is someone desperately to be cherished and certainly to be missed.
At this present moment, we're waiting the arrival of Lord Sean Milligan. I think we ought to move camera left
towards the fireplace, very slowly, panning slowly, so as to pick up our daughter, Sile.
Say it was a family dinner, and I was the first one down to the drawing room. He'd say, "Hello, my darling Sile, come sit down." And he'd just start playing this music, and he'd say, "I wrote this for you." I said, "I know, Dad, you did."
He'd written songs for all of us, so he'd go through the repertoire of your songs.
When you look back on your life, what do you see as your greatest success?
Being a good father. From the time they're born to the time they're teenagers and grow up. And I'm still in love with them.
Love, light and peace. What is that? What did that mean to Dad? Why did he use it as a sign-off?
He had a liberated soul, I think, from the outset, and that was his sign-off, love, light and peace.
He'd like to be Jesus, and he'd like to spread the word about being kind and looking after the world you live in and the people around you. Be at peace. Love, light and peace.
I do think I have a prophetic vision about the earth, but who's going to listen to a clown?
Brotherly love in the studio here on BBC4 tonight as we seek out the brothers who made it big in the music industry next. And then, speaking of which, at 5 to 1 we've a cracking collection of Kinks clips from right here at the BBC.